The galaxy had a simple rule that everyone followed. They were the strongest. They had ruled for 10,000 years, and no one dared to challenge them. Their warriors stood 9 feet tall with skin as black as the void between stars. Their bones were harder than any metal known to science. When a warrior entered battle rage, entire cities fell to dust. Every species in the known universe understood this truth. When they demanded something, you gave it. When they wanted your planet, you moved. When they called you to kneel, you dropped to your knees and thanked them for letting you live. This was the way of things. This was the only way. So when the small blue planet called Earth was discovered and its people refused to bow, the galaxy found it amusing. The humans were soft creatures. They had no claws, no fangs, no natural armor. They could not breathe in space or survive in extreme temperatures. They were weak and fragile, and they would learn their place soon enough. The Galactic Conclave sent their message to Earth with cold certainty. Submit or burn. There was no third option. Was not supposed to receive this message. He was sitting in a small transport ship, traveling to a peace conference as part of the security team. The real ambassador was a woman named Director, a brilliant diplomat who had spent her entire career preparing for first contact with alien species. Was just a former Marine, 43 years old, gray hair at his temples, a bad knee from an old injury that never healed right. He had served his country for 20 years before retiring to a quiet life. This mission was supposed to be simple: protect the ambassador, stand in the background, look serious. Then the pirates attacked. The ship shook as the first blast hit. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Grabbed his weapon and ran toward the ambassador's quarters, but he was too late. The hull had been breached directly where Director had been standing. She was gone. So were most of the crew. Fought for 6 hours in that broken ship. He killed 11 pirates with his rifle, then 4 more with his knife when the ammunition ran out, then 2 more with his bare hands when the knife was lost. When the rescue ships finally arrived, they found him sitting among the bodies, bleeding from a dozen wounds, still breathing. He was the only survivor. The Conclave did not care about pirates or dead diplomats. They only cared about their demand. Earth had 30 days to send a champion to face the apex warrior in ritual combat. If the champion won, humanity would be granted a seat at the Conclave as equals. If the champion lost, Earth would be cleansed of all life. There was no refusing. There was no negotiating. This was law. Back on Earth, Admiral read the transmission with steady hands. She was 41 years old, the youngest fleet commander in human history. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform was perfectly pressed. People called her the Iron Admiral because she never showed emotion, never panicked, never lost control. Inside, she was terrified. She had studied them for years. She knew what they were capable of. A single warrior could destroy an entire human battalion. Their apex warrior was the strongest of them all, undefeated in 300 years of combat. He had killed champions from 400 different species. Some of those species no longer existed. "We need to find our strongest fighter," her aide said. "Someone from the Special Forces, someone enhanced with the latest technology." Shook her head slowly. She was looking at a file on her screen. The file belonged to. "Strength won't win this fight," she said quietly. "Nothing we have can match strength. We need something else." "What else is there?" Enlarged the file. She read through service record. 20 years of combat. 17 major injuries. 4 times he had been declared clinically dead before being revived. He had survived things that should have killed any normal person. Not because he was the strongest or the fastest, but because he simply refused to stop. "We need someone who won't break," she said. "Someone who will keep going when his body fails, when his mind screams at him to quit, when every logical part of him knows he should be dead." She turned to face her aide. "We need a human." They found in a hospital bed, still recovering from the pirate attack. When walked into his room, he tried to stand and salute, but his injuries made it impossible. She told him to stay down. "You know why I'm here," she said. "Yes, Admiral. You know what I'm asking you to do." Looked out the window at the sky. Somewhere up there beyond the blue, an alien empire was waiting to destroy everything he had ever known. His family, his friends, his entire species. "I'm not the strongest," he said. "I'm not even close." "No," agreed, "you're not." "Then why me?" Sat down in the chair beside his bed. For a moment her iron mask slipped and saw something underneath. Fear, hope, desperation. "Because 400 species have sent their strongest warriors to face she said. "And 400 species have watched their champions die in minutes. Strength doesn't beat them. Speed doesn't beat them. Technology doesn't beat them." She leaned forward. "But in all their history, they have never faced something like us. They've never faced a species that evolved not to be the strongest, but to endure. Our ancestors didn't hunt by being faster than their prey. They hunted by following that prey for days, weeks, until it simply couldn't run anymore." Listened in silence. "You survived 6 hours against pirates when everyone else died in seconds," continued. "You've been shot, stabbed, blown up, and declared dead 4 times. And you're still here. That's not strength, Sergeant. That's something they have never seen." She stood up and walked to the door. "I won't order you to do this. But if you refuse, I don't know what else to try. You might be our only chance." Closed his eyes. He thought about Earth. He thought about the billions of people who would never know his name, who would live or die based on what he decided in this moment. He opened his eyes. "When do I leave?" Allowed herself one small smile. "Tomorrow." The journey to space took 14 days. Spent most of that time training, eating, and sleeping. His body was still healing from the pirate attack, but he pushed through the pain. Pain was an old friend. He had learned long ago that pain was just information, just his body telling him that something was wrong. He could listen to that information or ignore it. He chose to ignore it. The ship that carried him was small but fast. Admiral had given him a crew of 5 people to help with his preparation. Dr. Shin was the most important. She was a who had spent her entire career studying alien species. She knew more about them than anyone else on Earth. "They evolved on a heavy gravity world," explained during one of their sessions. "Everything about them is built for power. Their muscles are 3 times denser than ours. Their reaction speed is incredible. In a straight fight, a warrior can kill any known species in seconds." "That's encouraging," said dryly. Smiled, she liked this man. He didn't complain. He didn't panic. He just listened and learned. "But there's something interesting about their evolution," she continued. "They're apex predators, top of the food chain. On their world, nothing could challenge them, so they never needed to develop endurance." "What do you mean?" "I mean they're built for short, explosive fights. Ambush predators. They attack with overwhelming force and end the battle quickly. Their bodies aren't designed for long combat. Their muscles burn through energy at an incredible rate." Leaned forward, suddenly interested. "So if I can survive the initial attack, then you might have a chance," finished. "The longer the fight goes, the more the advantage shifts. But I have to warn you, no one has ever survived long enough to test this theory. Most champions die in the first minute. Then I'll have to survive longer than a minute." When the ship finally arrived at the system, looked out the window and felt something cold settle in his stomach. The arena of bones was built on a dead moon, a gray and lifeless rock orbiting a planet of black clouds and red lightning. The arena itself was ancient, older than human civilization. It was carved from the moon's core, a massive circular structure that could hold millions of spectators. The viewing galleries were already full when shuttle landed. He could see representatives from hundreds of species. There were the insect-like beings with clicking mandibles and compound eyes. There were the creatures made of living gas that swirled with colors as their emotions changed. There were the giant beings of living stone who beat ancient war drums with their massive fists. They had all come to watch humanity die. Walk through the corridors of the arena alone. The walls were lined with bones, the remains of champions who had failed. 400 species had sent their greatest warriors here. 400 species had watched those warriors fall. Some of the bones were small, delicate things. Others were massive, bigger than its entire body. All of them had belonged to beings who thought they could defeat the. All of them had been wrong. The arena floor was a circle of packed dirt and ancient stone. When stepped out into the light, the crowd fell silent for a moment, then erupted in laughter. He heard clicking, buzzing, rumbling sounds of amusement from 1,000 different throats. He understood why. Standing in the center of the arena was the Unbroken. The apex warrior was everything the stories said and more. 9 feet of black muscle and barely contained violence. 4 arms, each one thick as a tree trunk. Eyes that burned with red fire. Scars covered his body, each one a trophy from a battle won. He had been fighting for 300 years and he had never lost. When saw, he laughed. It was a deep, terrible sound that shook the very air. This is what the humans send. His voice was like grinding stone. A wounded old male. I have fought children who looked more threatening. Said nothing. He was studying his opponent the way his instructors had taught him years ago, not looking at the obvious things, the muscles and the claws and the size, looking for the small things, the way he shifted his weight, the slight tilt of his head, the pattern of his breathing. Every fighter had patterns, every fighter had tells, even legendary ones. Do you have any last words, little human? Spread his 4 arms wide. Any messages for your world before I tear you apart? Rolled his shoulders and settled into a fighting stance. His knee ached. His ribs still hurt from the pirate fight. His body was telling him that this was insane, that he should run, that he should beg for mercy. He ignored all of it. No, he said simply, let's begin. The bell rang. Moved faster than anything had ever seen. One moment that was standing in the center of the arena. The next moment he was directly in front of, all 4 fists swinging in a pattern designed to crush, to break, to destroy. Any other fighter would have died in that first second, but was already moving. He didn't try to block. Blocking was like trying to block a falling mountain. He didn't try to counter. His fists would bounce off that black skin like raindrops off armor. He simply moved, sliding to the side, letting the deadly fists pass within inches of his face. His blow hit the arena floor where it had been standing. The stone shattered. Cracks spread out in every direction. The crowd went silent. Turned, surprised. No one dodged his first attack. No one was fast enough. Yet somehow this small, fragile human was still standing, still breathing, still watching him with those calm, steady eyes. Lucky growled, "It won't happen again." He attacked again, and again, and again. Each blow was fast enough to break the sound barrier. Each blow carried enough force to shatter bones and rupture organs. Each blow was perfectly aimed at vital points that should have ended the fight instantly. And each blow missed. Moved like water. He didn't think about where to go. His body simply reacted, drawing on 20 years of combat experience, finding the gaps in its attacks and flowing through them. He was slower than he was weaker, but he could see the patterns now, the rhythm of assault. 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. The crowd had stopped laughing. Something was wrong. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. The human should be dead by now. The human should be a broken corpse on the arena floor. Instead, the human was still moving. And for the first time in 300 years, the Unbroken felt something he had almost forgotten. Doubt. 1 hour into the fight, the galaxy began to understand that something impossible was happening. Had not stopped attacking. His 4 arms were a blur of violence, each strike powerful enough to crack starship hulls. The arena floor was destroyed, covered in craters and cracks from the blows that missed their target. Dust filled the air. The ancient stones groaned under the force of combat they had never been designed to withstand. And still the human moved. Was not untouched. Blood ran down his face from a gash above his eye where a glancing blow had caught him. His left arm hung at a strange angle, dislocated in the shoulder. Every breath sent fire through his chest where at least 2 ribs had cracked. His bad knee had given out completely, forcing him to move with a limping, uneven gait. But he did not fall. In the viewing galleries, representatives from 100 worlds watched in growing disbelief. The had stopped clicking. The had turned a confused shade of purple. Even the ancient had stopped beating their drums, their stone faces showing something that might have been wonder. "This is impossible," one ambassador whispered to another. "The human should be dead. Why isn't he dead?" No one had an answer. 2 hours passed, then 3, then 4. Back on Earth, the fight was being broadcast to every screen on the planet. 8 billion humans watched their champion bleed and stumble and somehow keep moving. In homes and offices, in hospitals and schools, people held their breath and prayed to whatever gods they believed in. Admiral watched from the command center, her hands gripping the edge of her desk until her knuckles turned white. She had believed in, had bet humanity's survival on one wounded soldier, and now she was watching that bet play out in blood and pain. Dr. Shin stood beside her, monitoring the data feeds from the arena. "Look at movement patterns," said quietly. "He's slowing down." Looked closer. It was subtle, almost invisible, but was right. The attacks were coming slightly slower than before. His breathing was harder. His movements were less precise. The endurance theory breathed. "It's working." "The body is burning through energy at an incredible rate," explained. "Has probably never fought for more than a few minutes in his entire life. He doesn't know how to pace himself. He doesn't know how to conserve energy. He's been fighting at full power this entire time." And looked at the screen, where the human soldier continued his desperate dance of survival. "Humans are different. Our ancestors survived by outlasting their prey. Our bodies are designed to keep going long after other species would collapse. It's not about speed or strength. It's about refusing to stop." 5 hours, 6 hours. Rage had turned to confusion, and confusion was turning to something else. Something he had never experienced in 300 years of combat. Fear. "What are you?" he roared at the human. "Why won't you die?" Didn't waste breath on answers. He just kept moving, kept dodging, kept surviving. Every muscle in his body screamed for rest. His vision was blurring from blood loss and exhaustion. His mind kept trying to shut down to escape the pain, but he forced it to stay focused. He thought about Earth. He thought about his sister back in, who had cried when he left. He thought about the children in the schools, watching this fight without understanding what would happen if he failed. He thought about 8 billion lives resting on his shoulders. He could not stop. He would not stop. 7 hours, 8 hours. His attacks were slower now, his movements heavy and labored. The mighty apex warrior was experiencing something his species had never evolved to handle: exhaustion. His muscles were burning through their energy reserves. His lungs were struggling to provide enough oxygen. His heart was pounding at a rate that would kill a lesser being. But still he fought. He was the unbroken. He had never lost. He could not lose, not to this small, weak, fragile creature that refused to have the decency to die. "I will destroy your entire species," gasped between attacks. "I will burn your world to ashes. I will make your people suffer for 1,000 years for this humiliation." Ducked under a swing that would have taken his head off. "You talk too much," he said. It was the first thing he had said since the fight began, and the words hit like a physical blow. The roared in fury and launched himself at the human with everything he had left. His fist connected, flew backward, crashing into the arena wall hard enough to crack the ancient stone. For a terrible moment he didn't move. Blood pooled beneath him. His eyes were closed. The crowd erupted in relief. Finally it was over. The natural order would be restored. The weak would fall before the strong as it had always been. Then opened his eyes. Slowly, painfully, impossibly, he pushed himself to his feet. His entire body was shaking. Blood dripped from his mouth. One eye was swollen shut. He looked like a corpse that had forgotten to fall down. But he was standing. Hal whispered, spat blood onto the arena floor, and raised his fists. "I'm not finished yet." 9 hours, 10 hours, 11 hours. The fight had become something beyond combat. It was a contest of wills, a battle between two completely different philosophies of survival. Represented the way the galaxy had always worked. The strong dominated, the weak submitted, and power was the only truth that mattered. Represented something else, something the galaxy had never seen before. He represented the stubborn, impossible, unreasonable human refusal to accept defeat. At the 12-hour mark, the Unbroken fell to his knees. The apex warrior who had killed champions from 400 species, who had never known defeat in 3 centuries of combat, could not stand. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides. His legendary strength was gone. His body had finally reached its limit. Stood before him, barely alive, held upright by nothing but pure will. The arena was completely silent. Everyone was waiting to see what the human would do next. The silence in the arena of bones was absolute. 1,000,000 beings from 100 different species held their breath, waiting. The greatest warrior in the galaxy was on his knees, defeated. The rules were clear. Everyone knew what was supposed to happen next. The victor killed the vanquished. This was the way. This was the only way. Looked down at, the mighty was barely conscious. His red eyes, once burning with rage and power, were dim and unfocused. His black skin was gray with exhaustion. His 4 arms, which had crushed countless champions, lay useless in the dirt. 12 hours ago, this creature had laughed at, called him weak, promised to destroy his entire species. Now could not even lift his head. His body screamed at him to collapse. He had broken bones, torn muscles, and lost enough blood to kill a normal man twice over. His vision kept fading in and out. Every heartbeat sent waves of agony through his chest. He was held together by nothing but stubborn will and the knowledge that 8 billion lives depended on him. He could end it now. One strike to his throat. One final blow to prove that humanity was worthy of respect. The galaxy would see humans as killers, as conquerors, as beings to be feared. That was what the Conclave expected. That was what every species in the arena had been raised to believe. The strong killed the weak. The winner destroyed the loser. Power was proven through death. Thought about this for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. The reaction was immediate. A gasp rippled through the crowd. The clicked in confusion. The swirled with colors that had no name. The rumbled questions to each other in their ancient language. No one understood what was happening. Stared at the extended hand, as if it were a weapon more dangerous than any sword. "What is this?" His voice was a broken whisper. "What are you doing?" "It's called mercy," said. His voice was rough and tired, but somehow it carried across the entire arena. "On my world, we don't always kill our enemies. Sometimes we turn them into friends." Shook his head slowly. "This is not how things are done. You have won. I have lost. You must kill me. Honor demands it." "Whose honor, not mine? If you do not kill me, my people will see me as weak. They will challenge me. They will tear me apart." Kept his hand extended. "Then maybe your people need to learn what I learned a long time ago." "What is that?" "That there's no shame in losing. The only shame is in not getting back up." stared at the human, this small, broken creature who should have died in the first second of combat, this fragile being who had somehow survived 12 hours against the greatest warrior in the galaxy, this impossible fighter who now offered mercy instead of taking victory. "Why?" asked. "I threatened your world, I promised to destroy your people. Why would you show me kindness?" Smiled, it was a tired smile, full of pain but genuine. "Because killing you would prove we're good at violence. Every species in this galaxy is good at violence. That's nothing special. But surviving, enduring, and then choosing not to destroy when we have every right to, that's something different. That's something worth proving." He kept his hand extended. "I didn't come here to show the galaxy that humans can kill. I came to show them that we know when killing isn't the answer. I came to show them what real strength looks like." Real strength. Real strength isn't about crushing everyone weaker than you. Real strength is lifting them up. Real strength is standing with others instead of standing over them. Was silent for a long moment. His entire life, he had been taught that power was everything. That dominance was the only goal. That mercy was weakness and compassion was foolishness. He had killed hundreds of champions and felt nothing but satisfaction. Now he felt something new, something strange, something that might have been shame. He looked at the human's hand, battered, bloody, shaking with exhaustion but still extended, still offering. "My people will not understand," said slowly. "Maybe not at first, but maybe they'll learn. The galaxy will think you're weak. Let them, we've been underestimated before." Looked up its face. He saw something there that he had never seen in any of his opponents, not hatred, not fear, not even the satisfaction of victory. He saw respect, genuine, honest respect for a fallen enemy. Something cracked inside, something that had been hard and cold for 300 years. He did not have words for what he was feeling. His species had no concept for it, but it was warm and it was strange, and it made him want to believe that the human was right. Slowly, impossibly reached up. He clasps forearm in the ancient gesture of brotherhood. The arena exploded. Every species had their own way of expressing shock. The shrieked, the turned white with disbelief, the bellowed so loudly that the stone walls shook. Representatives from hundreds of worlds jumped to their feet, shouting, questioning, demanding to know what was happening. Because nothing like this had ever happened before. In the entire history of the Arena of Bones, no champion had ever offered mercy. No had ever accepted defeat without death. The rules of the galaxy, the fundamental truth that power was everything, had just been shattered by a wounded human and a broken warrior. Rose to his feet with help. They stood together in the center of the arena, two fighters who should have been enemies, who should have fought until one of them was dead. Instead, they stood as brothers. "What happens now?" asked quietly. Looked around at the chaos in the galleries. For the first time in centuries, he smiled. "Now," he said, "everything changes." He raised his voice so that it boomed across the arena, silencing the crowd. "I, the unbroken, apex warrior of the, name this human as my brother. By the ancient rights of my people, his blood is my blood. His enemies are my enemies. His people are under my protection." The silence that followed was deeper than space. "Any who threaten humanity," continued, "threaten the. Any who attack Earth attack my. This is my word. This is my bond. This is the new law of the galaxy." He looked down at brother, looked up at him, brother, and on Earth, 8 billion humans began to cheer. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours, every species in known space had seen the recordings. They watched fall to his knees. They watched the human extend his hand. They watched the apex warrior accept brotherhood with a being that should have been nothing more than prey. And they did not know what to make of it. The old powers of the galaxy had plans for Earth. They had expected humanity to lose, expected to cleanse the blue planet as they had cleansed so many others. These powers had already divided up Earth's resources, had already claimed its territory, had already decided how to use its surviving population as slaves. Those plans turned to ash overnight. Because declaration was not just words. In culture, the bond of brotherhood was sacred. It was older than their empire, older than their wars, older than their species' memory. When a named someone brother, that bond could not be broken. It was stronger than law, stronger than politics, stronger than death itself. Any attack on humanity was now an attack on the. Any threat to Earth was a threat to the most powerful warrior species in the galaxy. Any enemy of humans was an enemy of, and through him, an enemy of his entire people. The old powers quietly destroyed their plans and began writing new ones. Counselor arrived on the Conclave station 3 weeks after the fight. She was Earth's new ambassador, a woman of 50 with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent her entire career in diplomacy, solving problems that others said could not be solved, building bridges that others said could not be built. Now she faced the biggest challenge of her life. The conclave chamber was vast, a circular room that could hold representatives from 1,000 species. When walked in, every eye turned to her. Some looked at her with curiosity, some with fear, some with hatred. She smiled at all of them equally. "Distinguished members of the conclave," she began, "I come before you not as a conqueror but as a neighbor. Humanity does not seek to rule this galaxy. We only seek to live in it peacefully alongside all of you." An ambassador rose to speak. His mandibles clicked with barely hidden anger. "Your species has disrupted the natural order. The strong have always ruled the weak. This is how the galaxy functions. This is how it has always functioned. Your victory changes nothing." "You're right," replied calmly. "The strong will always rule, but perhaps we should discuss what strength really means." She gestured to the massive screen behind her. Images appeared. Humans building hospitals on disaster-struck worlds. Humans sharing agricultural technology with species that were starving. Humans sending teachers to planets that had lost their schools to war. In the month since Sargent's victory, humanity has begun reaching out to your worlds, not with weapons but with hands extended in friendship. We have nothing to offer but ourselves, our knowledge, our willingness to help. Is that weakness? The chamber was silent. "The ruled through fear," continued. "And yes, fear is a form of strength, but fear breeds resentment. It breeds rebellion. It breeds the constant need to prove your power over and over again. Is that truly strong, or is it just another kind of prison?" She looked directly at the ambassador. "Humanity offers a different kind of strength. Not the strength of the fist, but the strength of the open hand. Not the strength of domination, but the strength of cooperation. We believe that all species, no matter how different, can find common ground. We believe that the galaxy does not have to be a place of constant war and fear." "Pretty words," the ambassador sneered, "but words are not power." "You're wrong." A new voice echoed through the chamber, entered through the main doors, still bearing the scars from his battle with. He walked to stand beside. "I was like you once," said to the assembly. "I believed that power was everything, that the strong existed to crush the weak. I killed champions from 400 species and felt nothing but pride." He placed one of his massive hands on shoulder. "Then a wounded human showed me something different. He could have killed me. He had earned that right. Instead, he offered mercy. He offered friendship. He showed me that there is strength in choosing not to destroy." Looked around the chamber. "I have been a warrior for 300 years. I have fought more battles than any of you can imagine. And I tell you now, without doubt, that what this small species offers is more powerful than any weapon I have ever wielded." The chamber erupted in debate. Arguments flew back and forth. Old hatreds were voiced, old fears expressed, old beliefs challenged. It went on for hours. But slowly, inevitably, the tide began to turn. 10 years later, the galaxy was almost unrecognizable. The human alliance had become the foundation of a new order, not an empire built on fear, but a partnership built on mutual respect. Species that had been enemies for now worked together. Trade flourished. Wars became rare. The constant cycle of dominance and submission that had defined galactic politics for 10,000 years was finally beginning to end. On Unity Station, the massive structure that served as the Alliance's headquarters, stood on the observation deck and watched the stars. His hair was fully gray now, and his limp had gotten worse over the years. The injuries from his battle with had never fully healed. But he was at peace. Stood beside him as he often did these days. The great warrior had changed much in the past decade. He smiled more often. He spoke of things other than combat. He had become, improbably, one of the greatest advocates for peace in the galaxy. "Do you ever regret it?" asked, "sparing my life, choosing mercy over victory?" Shook his head, "Never, not for a moment. Your people could have dominated the galaxy. With my people's support, you could have become emperors. You could have ruled everything." "We didn't want to rule," said quietly. "We just wanted to survive, and now we have something better than an empire." "What's that?" Gestured at the view before them. Ships from 100 worlds came and went, trading, talking, building. Representatives from species that had never spoken to each other were laughing together in the station's common areas. Children from different planets were playing together in the recreation zones. "Friends," said, "we have friends." Was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, a warm sound that would have been unthinkable 10 years ago. "You humans are strange creatures," he said. "You are small and weak and fragile. You break easily and heal slowly. By every measure of power the galaxy has ever used, you should be nothing." He turned to face his brother. "And yet you have changed everything. Not through strength, not through conquest, but through something I still do not fully understand." Smiled. "It's not complicated. We just know that the universe is cold and dark and dangerous. We know that no one survives alone. So we learned, a long time ago, that the only way to make it through is together." He looked out at the stars. "That's the real secret of humanity. We're not the strongest species. We're not the or the fastest or the most advanced, but we're really good at one thing." "What's that?" Turned to his brother, his friend, the warrior who had once wanted to destroy his entire world. "Making more of us." Frowned in confusion. "Making more humans." "No," laughed. "Making more friends, turning enemies into allies, finding the common ground that everyone says doesn't exist." He gestured at the station around them. 10 years ago this was impossible. Humans and standing together, 100 species working in peace, the galaxy changing. He put his hand on his arm. "You asked me once why I spared your life. This is why, because I saw something in you that could be saved, something that wanted to be more than just a weapon, and I was right." Looked at the hand on his arm, such a small hand, such a fragile species, and yet somehow impossibly they had brought the galaxy to its knees. Not through fear. Through love. "Thank you, brother," said quietly. Smiled. "Thank you for letting me." And outside the windows the galaxy turned on, no longer bowing to the strongest, but finally, at long last, learning to stand together.